Hello and welcome back to NA Turbo. So hopefully you can hear me a bit clearer today. I'm trying my Rode wireless mic again for a second time. It doesn't seem to like iPhones for some reason, but I've got a pucker iPhone connector this time, so I'm hoping I'll be coming through a bit clearer. So I just thought I'd do a video because as those of you that watch Hub Nut, Furious Driving or iDriver Classic have noticed, the Rustival 2 is back on in September. So I've joined up for that and my plan is to take old Rado the Corrado here. So thought I'd explain a bit where he is at the moment and what I've got to do to get him to a point of where I can actually take him to Rustival, because at the moment he's been off the road since November last year due to certain electrical issues. So I've covered it in other videos, but we'll just have a spin through again on what it is. But for those of you who don't know what he is, for the start, Rado is a 1994 Corrado VR6. So back in the sort of 80s, 90s, without going into sort of all the history, coupes were a big thing. So you had the Toyota Celica, likes of which were very good. You had the Ford Probe, you had Vauxhall Calibra. It was very much a coupe sort of marketplace. So the Corrado came on the scene, quite expensive at the time. In fact, very expensive. I think they were sort of pitching it well above a VR6 Golf of the time with the same engine and the Golf GTI. And, you know, sort of reports of the time will say in sales, I think it was about 100,000. In production car terms, it was a bit of a flop, mainly because of the cost of it new when you compared it to, this was more expensive than the Celica GT4, it was more expensive or a similar price to the Calibra 4x4. It was, you know, aiming it at that sort of level, and people were sort of looking at those and Golf GTIs and things and going, did this make sense? So yeah, they didn't sell very well, but they're sort of a halo car really. And for me, having started off with a Mark II Golf as my first car, it was one of the only cars I said I'd ever swap for in the Volkswagen range in terms of old cars, next to the Mark II. So, you know, they're a bit of a, I guess, a parts bin special, if you like. So in this model era, which is the second one, the front end is based on a Mark III Golf. The rear end is based on the current Passat of that generation. So it's got twist beam axle, things like that. But the hubs, everything at the front, the drivetrain is based on a Mark III Golf. So this car's story, it's actually, I've had him about 9 years now. I bought him as a stalled project. So somebody had tried to convert him from an automatic to a manual. Now this was a car that was spec'd, and I have the actual original invoice. It was a car that was spec'd with a lot of options. The automatic gearbox was something like £1,600 as an option. This one had dealer fit air conditioning, which we'll go into in a bit. It also had a full closure Scorpion remote alarm system. And we'll go into that in a bit, because some of these dealer fit options are what's caused the electrical issues he's had. So yeah, so it was quite an expensive car. Obviously, these auto boxes at the time, Volkswagen owners, were known to be quite chocolatey in terms of, they weren't that well made. So this particular one, it was a very low mileage car when I bought it. It was on around 100,000 miles, and it was already on its second automatic gearbox at the time. So it's a case of they just weren't very good. So the guy I bought it off, who was only actually, it was registered as a second keeper on it, decided he'd convert it to a manual, which is easy in theory. So he started the project, got most of the bits of it, 90%, and then stalled. And I basically got it for a bargain, because it was sat on his sister's drive and she threatened to scrap it if he didn't sell it. So I picked it up. Luckily, we have an electronics engineer in the family which help out with some of the electrics of converting it from a automatic to a manual car. But the actual mechanicals were fairly simple. So it came with it a gearbox off a Mark III Golf VR6 that would slot straight onto this engine. In these cars, they're quite easy because they come out. I can't get to the passenger side very easily because of where it's parked, but you can essentially take the strut off from the passenger side of the car and the hub and disc, and the gearbox will come out of that end of the car without you having to do lots of major work of subframes and taking engines out and whatnot. So we did that, we put that in. The only sort of real challenge was finding a pedal box, because obviously it had to go from a 2-pedal automatic pedal box to a manual 3-pedal one, and these cars ran a hydraulic system at the time. So even when I did this sort of, it must be well over 10 years ago now, I think 9-10 years ago, I was struggling back then to find one. So anybody that's looking to do it now, you'll really struggle if you're thinking about doing something as silly as I did. So yeah, so we got that, plumbed that in, did the hydraulics for it. The electrics were fairly simple in the end. It basically just needed a bit of rewiring, so the car was thinking its ECU was always in park at the time, because one of the reasons is it wouldn't start because the box had been removed. So we did that. It did struggle with a few things. So there was a couple of ECUs that fed to the box, I believe, from the auto box, because this had a rudimentary early traction control system on it, which linked through the ABS, and we changed the sensors and everything thinking it was those, because it had a fault where it would pressurize the ABS at 10 miles an hour, and basically that still didn't fix it. So I've not looked into it since then, because obviously now you don't have to have ABS functioning as part of the MOT, so it's currently not running ABS or traction control, but I would like to get it working again. So I'm either torn between it's either a sensor issue, one of the new sensors I bought at the time is gone, or it's actually expecting a signal from the automatic gearbox is no longer there because that ECU and that box is gone. So that could be it, but I'm not too bothered about that. So yeah, we'll just sort of have a quick look around him. As with all my cars, because he was a sort of driveway fine in this case, the paintwork has suffered. It's had some paintwork by me and the family to the front of the bonnet and the wings, which hasn't come out so great. There's a few period modifications that I've done, so like them or loathe them, I like them still. So it's got crystal rear lights on it, because I just thought the originals looked, I don't know, just looked quite a bit old on it, so I upgraded to them some years ago. And I can't really get you around that side from where he's parked at the moment, but yeah, he's got non-factory alloys on, because the alloys that it did have were 15-inch speed lines, which are actually quite rare, but they were all gone and needed refurbing. And when I looked at the cost, it was cheaper to buy a set of 16s of this generation and put tyres on it, so that's what I did. I like them, some people might not. The other non-standard thing is I've put a couple of, if I can get down and in without making you sick, some Carman stickers on, because this is a Carman designed and built car. So Carman that were then later, I believe, taken over by Volkswagen as sort of coach builders. So yeah, he's on currently about 140,000 miles. I'm hoping to take him to Rustival. The other thing, obviously, for the wiper nerds, is he is running on the front, particularly aero flat blade wipers. Now, I have to admit, I'm with Hubnut generally on aero wipers not being, not looking right in cars that they weren't meant to be on. So, for example, if I can pan over to Reg the Rover, when I bought him, he had aero wipers on it. It was the first thing I changed back to standard. But for this one, Volkswagen had a fault that they never really bothered to fix. So at speed, the way the wiper arms, the original ones, were designed, it would lift at speed, meaning anywhere above 40 miles an hour in the rain, you could not see because it would not clear the windscreen. Whether they were like that at new or whether it was just something as the metal relaxed over time, I don't know. But it was quite dangerous to drive in the wet. Obviously not being able to see is not ideal. So the fix for it, from looking around on the forums, were you had to change to get them to fit in the right arc and everything, you had to change to 2 driver's side arms from a Lupo GTI. Only a Lupo GTI, because they had the ones that would fit. So that's why it's got arrows on the front. So it's running 2 driver's side arms, if we take you in a bit closer, from a Lupo GTI, which when I couldn't originally find any of them, and I went to ask Volkswagen as a sort of last resort, that confused them immensely at the time, but I did manage to find some. So now I can see in the wet at speed, which is always handy. So yeah, that's a bit of the background of him. I've probably gone into this before in other videos, but I'm just going to sort of get him running now, and then I'll just sort of take you through a bit of the electricals that have got to sort to hopefully get him back on the road, and a couple of other things. I'll just sort of come off camera to get him going because the battery's not in at the moment, and can't do that one-handed. But one of the things that I could do from outside the car that I've got to change is the rear discs. I mean, he's been stud since November, so they're not great, but they were last changed about 7, 8 years ago, and they need replacing, so I'll get him new discs and pads for the rear. Fronts have been done. Other work he's had done, the engine's been completely out. He's had a new head gasket fitted, the head skimmed, didn't need any welding, because these get incredibly hot and can melt head gaskets, and it started weeping. So he's had that done. The gearbox that I originally put on him that was off I have no idea how many mileage car, but judging by how it was like stirring a bucket of paint with a spoon, I'd reckon it was at least 200,000 miles it had on it, the original box. So I also had that swapped out for a low mileage, about 80,000 mile box. So now I can actually get gears without trying to bake a cake at the same time. So that's quite nice. But yeah, we'll get his bonnet up, we'll get him running, and then I'll take you into the electrical issues. So join me again in a second. Right, so welcome back. That took bit more than I thought to get him going once he'd been stood for a little while. So the battery that should come with the car, which is a good battery, and I've just taken off, which is the USA one there, or the Hankook, whichever it is, wasn't quite man enough to jump him after that time, so I had to go to a bigger battery that I've kept off a old Volkswagen Touareg I had for a while. It was a 3-litre V6. I mean, ironically, that see the difference they had to do for space. So this is a 2.9 litre engine, you've got that size battery, to same engine essentially but in a 3.2. okay, Touareg and more electricals, but to that size battery. So yeah, it was, you know, some concessions were made to actually keep it in place. So now he's running, purring away. So we're under the bonnet, and I can show you some of the wiring. Ignore the where I've got the jump leads on. I had to do it like that just because, as you can see, it's a nest of wiring in here at the moment where we're trying to trace the fault, and I hope you can hear me over the engine sound. But yeah, so two things happened is at some point we think a wire has got trapped into a loom that runs all down here. I can't really show you because it's out at the moment, but down here under there, and actually sits under the battery. And that controls the second stage high-speed fan for the radiator. So what was happening is a fault suddenly appeared where the second stage fan was on as soon as you switched on the ignition. So that was A, annoying, and B, because the car was running cool all the time, it wasn't getting up to temperature fully, was killing the fuel economy on this thing. And because I always run E5 and refuse to use E10 in this, yeah, it was hurting the pocket quite a bit. Did mean you got a bit more extra power, but at the same time, you know, it was doing no good for it sort of running constantly cold. So it will run a bit cooler than normal because obviously there's a lot of engine to fit in a small engine bay. So these did suffer with overheating and the head gasket issues, even with the second stage fan that this one's got on it. So what we did when we first got it and started putting it back together with the gearbox is I dropped the the thermostat temperature so it opens a lot sooner, just to help protect it that bit more. So it never really sits at full operating temperature, but it does get up there. So that's that. But yeah, that's the major electrical issue we're trying to sort out at the moment. Is we think it's got trapped somewhere in this loom that runs under here. The problem with it being is normally you would just get a new temperature sensor that goes into the engine and wire it in. The reason we had to originally wire it in on spades when the last one failed for the second high-speed fan is because this car's got dealer stage air conditioning done by a company called Diavia at the time. It ceased to work in here for years, but because of that, these radiators are different. So they're very, very subtly different to the ones that are on a non-AC car. So trying to find a radiator at the start was a nightmare, and then trying to find the correct temperature sensor that went in it was also a nightmare. So that's we originally had to get one, not for this car, a normal VR6, to sort of connect it in on spades. So we're obviously going to look at doing that properly now and getting back on the road, and hopefully that'll sort that issue. At the moment, the second stage sensor is unplugged, and I think I've actually got the actual sensor, because when it's not being summer, I take it out because the first stage fan will still come on. So if it can focus on it, this is the second one for the second stage on it. So basically the only way to stop it coming on when it was winter and ruining my pocket as well as fuel economy was I just used to unplug this and keep it in the car, because the first stage fan was enough to keep it cool. And obviously I'm just sort of constantly looking at the temperature inside the car at the minute just to make sure it's not going to overheat. So the first stage fan still comes in. Yeah, it's literally just the second stage. So that's one fault that we've got to sort. Second one that we have sorted was a little while ago, for some reason it lost main beam, so you either had side or full beam. So we traced that to, was actually the light switch in here. These cars, again, not Volkswagen's finest in terms of electricals, but the switch that's in here did not have a resistor, I think it was, in it. So there was cases, if you ever had an electrical fault, where because this runs straight to a live, this would essentially set fire, catch a fire, and then set fire to the whole of your wiring loom in the car. So yeah, that's not desirable. So we we put a resistor in it, I think it was, to stop that. But we found out when we took it out to find out what this fault was, it was still on main beam going direct to the battery. So it essentially burnt the inside of this switch. So that's what was causing that. So we've changed that now, so it won't do that. I've also got another switch in here, so that's one fault fixed. But yeah, that was sort of the two major faults that fix on it. The other one which we have since fixed is this window regulator went. I've got a suspicion this one's going now because it's sticking. So hopefully if we can get that door card off before Rustival, we can sort that out. But the major one is we want to get the fan sorted out, and we've sorted this lighting one out. But yeah, here we are in the inside of him. His steering wheel needs replacing because he got baked in the 42-degree heat and I forgot to put a cover on him. And the manual gearbox has got a Mark V gear knob on it, but as you can see down there, Carmen, which is original. So yeah, the dealer fit air conditioning, the buttons are still intact, they're here, but it does nothing at the moment. So I have dreams of sort of getting it working. You won't be able to get it working with the original equipment stuff because Diavia, who made the dealer fit air conditioning, no longer exist and got swallowed up by some multinational, and you cannot get the parts for these dealer fit. I even tried to get the aircon radiator re-cored and remade, but there's nobody that I've found that will do the cores for them. So there's a bit of Heath Robinson thinking going on behind that hopefully I'll be able to get it working. But essentially you turn it on to cold using this, and then you'd have the norm and the max buttons. So norm was just on a lower level, and then you'd hit max and that'll put it on full air conditioning. So that was that. The other thing it has, which you won't be able to see because I've changed it, is the full closure system as well. That was ripped out. But if I can bend you over, I'll show you the engineering. If I move this phone mount out of the way. So this here is where they fitted the dealer fit air conditioning gubbins behind it. So dealer fit stuff's come a long way since then. They literally just hacksawed a hole out of this tray here, put the gubbins that go all the way down here and behind here and in here in, stuck the plastic back in, and then sort of sealed over it. So you have that. So yeah, dealer fit stuff's come a long way since then. The other thing that's a pain, because it's got this air conditioning system, is they moved the location of the heating fan. So currently, as most heating fans do after time, they go on the resistor settings. So I've only got setting 4, but because I bought a new resistor for it, which you can get, but because they moved and redesigned the heater fan motor to it's down here somewhere now inside, it has a different resistor. So yeah, I'm back to the drawing board on that one, because it is not anywhere near the same as the standard one for a Golf or Corrado VR6. So yeah, these toys were nice back in the day, but yeah, didn't always work. So yeah, that was just a bit on Rado the Corrado. I think I've probably sort of gone on enough a bit now, but hopefully I'll do some more sort of footage when we sort of start getting his bits sorted. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Rustival, I believe it's rustival.co.uk or .com. Have a look on Facebook as well for Rustival. Grab tickets while you can, because it's an amazing event, all inclusive. The YouTubers that run it, Ian and Carly, Matt and Steph, are absolutely amazing. So yeah, if you haven't got a ticket, do go and look at get a ticket. It's held at the Gaydon Motor Museum in September. So yeah, that's all from me now. So thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe, and see you again soon.